Speaking arrogant, throwing fits, ripping shit, tearing it, imperative. Then I'm killing this mic no matter where I live. These derelict rappers acting the fool, this embarrassing is flagrant. That's the nature of this entertainment, and we can't even change it. Guilty before arraignment, now the system tainted. But when we speak, they all laugh at us. And y'all wonder why I'm lacking trust. Trying to fight a giant with attorneys that can back them up. That's church versus science, both sides start acting up. I'm late on my assignment, hopping up a mile high, climbing, obviously never silent. New alignment, I'm defiant, can I describe it? Used to describe it as a young graffiti artist. Before the beard, I always got carded. Hit every bar, even though my bar's been the hardest. The scars on my face, and I ain't always been the smartest. But I'll show you where my heart is. I said I'll show you where my heart is. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeves. Even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody will ever see. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve. Even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody will ever see. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve. I can show you where my...
The type of guy that would ride with the breeze. I'm higher than most people. I'm cold and icicle freeze. I'm liking to Mike Tyson. I'm a bison, a beast. I'm hot like Jamaica, like right by the beach. My pops is from a spot where they're fighting for peace. 8 years old out there watching people fight in the streets. All these sirens only make the violence increase. Yeah, we're still not loving police. It's that bright young American, nice, dumb, arrogant, tight on a mic, but he might need a therapist. Heart full of kerosene, head full of fairy tales. Said that you're my homie, you don't know me, but I know you very well. Roll back on some West Coast shit. This whole track is wetter than your dress code kiss. About to hit the track, running on some retro fit. I guess so lit, I guess so bitch, now let's go.
I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve. Even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody...
My guy. There he is. There he is. That's my guy. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Tuesday. We got a good show for you tonight. You guys are going to be happy about it. You know, I think tonight could be a fun night, Pinky. Cheers, my guy.
Cheers.
So there's a couple things to throw out there real quick as far as the world of sports that will kind of flutter right through. And then the big portion, the stuff we really are looking forward to this evening that we think is just a blast and, you know, something we love to do and talk about, along with, you know, everything to quarter flipping, is our fantasy football rankings. It is like prime draft season right now, Pinky, from now until the start of the season. And we're going to go ahead and give the people some thoughts, some opinions of the world of fantasy football.
Man, it's time. I got 2 drafts on Sunday. Super excited.
I got draft Sunday, and then we draft our Vampire League. We'll do that live next week. Is that next week?
No, that's not until like the actual week of the season. It's the Tuesday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the Tuesday the week the season starts.
Oh, what draft do I have next week then? Oh man, I better get my stuff together. I'm
better
going to be autoing. That would be bad. So, all right.
You better
Well,
get on
eventually
Sleeper and
we'll
figure
do
it out.
I'll get on the same page with Pinky here at some point, and we'll get back to you people. World of sports, Pinky, you got anything?
I mean, I'm gonna throw a shout out to my man Joker winning another horse race.
Yeah, buddy, he's loving it back in Sombor. AG went out there to hang out with him for a minute. It looks like just living the life.
Yeah, dude, yeah, it was cool. Like he got the trophy. He let Aaron Gordon lift up the trophy, and they were just having a good time. And man, I just love seeing that. I just love seeing teammates get together. Aaron Gordon's getting to, you know, go over to another country, get involved in their culture, and spend some time with one of his, you know, his teammates. And there's just so much so much good things come from that kind of, you know, camaraderie and chemistry. And
yeah, absolutely.
That's when you know those guys are going to be like brothers, even when they're done playing. You know. Yeah,
for sure. It kind of gives you that feel. Makes you feel real good about the Nuggets' future when, you know, the core is that close. I mean, it helps that Jokic is Jokic, right? Like, anybody that hates on that guy or doesn't like him, there's, you just want to hate, really, is what it comes down to.
You woke up and chose violence.
Yeah, there's no other reason to dislike that guy. I've heard people say he's as big a flopper as LeBron James. I mean, that's ridiculous. There's no way that's true. I've heard people say he whines and cries like Chris Paul. I'm like, no. Like, what are you guys like? Like, if he was just doing it with no valid reason behind it, cool, right? Like, then you could say that. But when you look at the back of the dude's arms by the end of the season, and it looks like he was whipped, like, just from the scars and all the scratches and stuff he has on his arms alone, like, I mean, it's kind of hard to say he's not getting beat up a little bit and has a reason to complain.
I've seen him like kind of throw out a whine here or there, but it's it's usually warranted.
Yeah, I'm not saying he doesn't whine. I'm saying there's a justified reason for why he does. It's not just to do it. You know what I mean?
Right. So I saw that happened. I was excited for that. Not much. I mean, baseball's still going. We got that Wander Franco story that's going on right now.
So that was one of the things I was going to bring up. Obviously, there's not a lot to go on yet. Investigation just started, 2 days ago?
Yeah.
Or yesterday. Might have broke yesterday morning, actually.
It was in the last couple days.
Sunday night, yesterday morning. So for those that haven't heard, Wander Franco, one of the biggest young talents in the game, playing for the Tampa Bay Rays, came out that on Twitter, I think the young lady that he was involved with made some messages directly to him, and people start putting two and two together. Turns out this relationship he's in happens to be with a 14-year-old. Which is a big no-no on so many different levels that we're not going to go into tonight. If the story finally gets some legs and there's more information, we can talk about it then. But
I don't know.
Apparently he's in a relationship with a minor.
I'm not quite sure what country he's from, cultures. There are other countries where that's not quite frowned upon like it is here. Doesn't make it right. I feel like but
it's frowned upon in every country now. Like, I feel like unless you're going like the Middle East, maybe. I don't know a ton about their cultures. But for the most part now, that's general consensus is it's not cool.
I mean, it's definitely not cool in America, and we understand why. But I don't know if that's the same everywhere. So I'm just saying I'm gonna give him a little bit of grace for the moment. Pretty much like we gave Deshaun to start with, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's kind of once we get more information, we'll discuss. But that is a breaking story. He did not travel with the team for their road trip. They put him on the commissioner's exempt list for baseball, whatever that happens to be. I don't quite remember what it is. And so there could be some major issues coming. We'll keep an eye on it for sure.
Cody's helping you out. You've got to
I see that
Pirate League draft.
Okay, that's going to be a problem. Okay, all right, that's
gonna have to figure that out.
Oh boy, I'm struggling to start this season, Pinky. I'm not gonna lie, struggling to start this season.
I mean, at the end of the day, you just got to go in with your picks, do the best you can, and pray to the fantasy gods that it works out, man.
I mean, the only time I've been a Sacco is for a dynasty league that we're in together, and I did so on purpose to just completely tear it down and start from scratch, basically.
Right.
Which, because what I had, I was never going to be able to truly win with. I would have been competitive, but I wouldn't have won. So I made the decision. It's a brutal one because it's a paid league, and I'm basically throwing away money for the next 2 to 3 years in hopes that I can turn it around. So, yes, struggling a little bit to get going this year. The sleepless nights and a lot of work has been catching up with me more so than it normally does.
Yeah, man. I just don't even know. I'm feeling like I've done a couple mocks. I'm really never happy with the mocks that I do. So I might just
we'll get into that. We'll get into that. The last thing I wanted to talk about real quick is another basketball story, and it's James Harden. Have you seen the video of what he said Like, have you actually seen the video?
I haven't seen the video. I just saw like
Man.
the post of the comments.
He's sitting in like a gym with a bunch. He's over in China. He's got a bunch of people around him, and he's sitting at like the free throw line, and they're kind of all 3-point line extended, kind of arced around him, And he's giving some kind of speech for, some kind of promotional event he's got going on over there. And somebody asked him a question about kind of the situation with Philly, and he came out basically without anybody leading him into saying this.
Straight napalmed him.
Dude, scorched earth. If you haven't heard, he said, Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never play for an organization that he's a part of. Let me repeat this. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never play for an organization he's a part of. Like, when I said, let me repeat this, that wasn't me. That was literally what he said so he could repeat it again because he wanted to make sure everybody that was going to print it heard it. I'm baffled. I'm blown away. He believes this is going to get him to where he wants to be. Because let's be honest, at this point in time, whatever trade package somebody would send back to Philly for James Harden would be the same value as just letting James Harden sit at home and allow him to pay those fines.
Right.
Like, that's an equal situation at this point in time as far as I'm concerned. And if that's the case, just let him sit at home. The dude forced himself out of Phoenix. The way he then turned around and forced himself out of Brooklyn. I'm not, dude, sit at home. The team didn't give you a Supermax. Guess what? You don't deserve one anymore. You're not somebody who I would pay $60 million a year to play basketball for the next 5 years.
You're not at a point in your career that you're getting Supermaxes anymore. You're just
no,
not.
hell no. And let's be honest. Take it a step further. You also don't show up in the playoffs in the most critical moments.
Right.
Like, that is your MO now.
And,
now, that can always change. Guys have all of a sudden shown up and won a championship. But you're not doing it in Philly with you and Embiid.
And I think he actually had one of his better seasons. Just the fact that he played basketball last season for most of the games.
Yeah, I mean, almost led the league in assists. So he definitely didn't play bad basketball. Not the best player on your team, which I don't think he would be no matter where he wants to go, because Embiid's better than him by all accounts. He's the MVP this year, right? So whether you like Harden or Embiid more, as it stands right now, Embiid led the league in scoring.
He
was the MVP.
Embiid's a way better player right now than
Embiid's the better player. So you're number 2 on the Sixers. It's not baseball. You want to go to LA, you'd be number 3 as far as I'm concerned. Because if Kawhi and PG are both healthy, they're better players than you. 1, they're both great on offense. 2, they both are elite at defense, something you don't even do. So you'd be the number 3 guy out in LA, the Clippers. I can't think of a team he would actually want to go to where he wouldn't be at least number 2. And honestly, I know there's a lot of guys in the league who come to his defense all the time. I don't think there's a lot of guys that actually want to play with him, though.
Yeah, he's a tough case, man. I loved his agent came out today and was just like, I know as good as he is, he's ready to have an MVP season next year. And I'm like, you're his agent. You have to say that. Like,
that's a fact.
That's the easy one. At this point, if I'm the 76ers, like, I don't think anybody's giving you any type of deal that you really want to take. So it's either you take what you can get and get that cancer out of your locker room or just out of the situation, or you just tell them, well, sit at home and pay fines then. Like, that's it. It's a tough situation. I don't envy them. It's kind of like almost the situation the Trailblazers are in. Dame wants to leave, but they're not getting anything of value to replace him with. So either you take.
I mean, that's not true. What Miami's willing to offer is 3 firsts. And
but those 3 firsts aren't worth much.
They could be, because you got to think about it this way. first of all, the 2 rookies that they're wanting to include, I like. They could be solid little building pieces around Scoot Henderson. And Tyler Hero's been mentioned. I don't know if they give him up, but he's been mentioned. So the package isn't terrible.
I don't think the Trailblazers want him back.
That's the thing. Like, Portland, though, is in a position where Dame doesn't want to be there. You've got Scoot Henderson, so you can hand the franchise off and move forward and start a true rebuild. And you're throwing away a solid package because you feel like you deserve more. But you don't. You've handled that situation so terribly over the last 5 years to put a team around him or anything that you're not getting return like you think you are, because there's only one team that really wants Dame, because Dame's come out and said, I only want to play for one team.
Look, they know Dame's worth quite a hell of a lot. And they're looking at it like, the Rudy Gobert deal.
That's the problem.
Donovan Mitchell deal.
The Rudy Gobert deal is equivalent to Deshaun Watson. Giving him a fully guaranteed contract and giving up what you gave up for him. That's what the Rudy Gobert deal is in the NBA right now. It's atrocious. It is an albatross. It is an outlier. It's not what things should actually be judged on. Mitchell went for less than what Rudy Gobert went for.
He did, but it still went for a good amount. And I think that's what, and the Trailblazers are looking at it like, well, if the Heat are good,
but
then those draft picks are lower round picks. Yeah, they're value players.
Donovan Mitchell never came out and said, I'm only playing for one team.
Right.
You know what I mean? He never forced a hand to where nobody else in the NBA wanted him. It looked like he was going to the Knicks, and then Cleveland came out of nowhere and threw together a package, and he ended up there. So, their situation is such that they can actually get something. Nobody, if somebody gives up a couple seconds for James Harden, like that feels like top dollar. Honestly, like there's no other reason to give up anything more than that. Yeah. Especially not when he's asking for the Supermax, so he'd be a 1-year rental on his player option. And then you don't know if he's going to actually re-sign with you, because he may not be happy with his playing time, his possession rate, whatever you want to call it, and you're not going to give him the Supermax. Like, he's going to go somewhere else. Like, that's just what he would do. So it's not worth anything more than that. Now, if you want to throw 2 firsts at him and say, hey, we'll take it for 2 firsts, got him for that, yeah, that'd be worth it, because very rarely are seconds anything. I said 2 firsts, didn't I? I meant 2 seconds. Very rarely are 2 seconds worth anything in the NBA.
Right.
So give that up for James Harden on a 1-year rental? Sure. Why not? That sounds like a plan. Anything more than that, though, just feels like a terrible mistake.
Which most times it definitely is going to be. So, let's get to football.
Let's do it.
So before we get to fantasy, I did want to throw some quick hitters about some of the young QBs in the league that all got to have some playing time this weekend.
Okay.
And there's some wild. I kind of love Rich Eisen's show. Every Monday he does Overreaction Monday, and they throw some crazy stuff out, and he judges whether that's an overreaction or if that's that's a fact, right?
Yep.
And so I thought, let's play that game a little bit. How much of these guys did you get to see this weekend? I've got NFL Plus, so I got to see a good amount.
I saw highlights of everything. Some things I got to watch kind of off and on. Some things I just missed altogether. So,
all right. So then we're going to trust what I watched, because I watched most of them.
Well, if I've watched it, I'll tell you. If I didn't see it, I'll just let you know I only saw the highlights.
So Jordan Love is going to take the Packers all the way.
Playoffs.
See, I didn't see that from him.
I saw a dude in some preseason action that was consistent, fairly accurate. He had the one throw that he just looked the guy off too long to hold the safety and didn't get back around to his read too quick and overthrew the guy. But that's an easy fix.
I mean,
that's an easy
I
fix.
don't know. That's a wide open layup. I will give him credit. His
Well,
touchdown.
but you teach him to not hold that as long. You don't need to hold it for a full 2 seconds. You can hold it for a second and then get back and make your throw. That's the window we're talking about here, and that's an easy fix, and that's just game time play. But the fact that he's doing that,
I will say he looked
thing.
more comfortable than he's looked in the past. His touchdown pass was a very risky pass because he threw it in between 3 dudes, but he got it there, and the guy caught it. So I will give him credit for that. But a lot of the stuff that I noticed, a lot of it was very easy reads, which good on the offensive play caller to give him easy stuff that he can run.
Well, that's what LaFleur is smart enough to do all season, I think.
The
playbook will open up a little bit as the season goes, probably. You would like to think so. But keep it simple, keep it smart, allow to do things to keep the quarterback in a rhythm, unlike what the Bears do for Justin Fields' idea.
So I know
we'll get there, but
on the majority of these guys, I am not overreacting.
No overreactions.
Things that I saw that I'm like, okay, they did that pretty good. There's some things I was like, yeah, that's not looking great. Sam Howell for the Redskins. Always going to be the Redskins for me.
Yeah, well, there's a rumor that the ownership wants to go back to it, and there's a Native American tribe that wants them to take the name back, apparently. I was reading some blurbs today.
There's just no way the NFL is going to let them do that, I don't think.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
So Sam Howell looked rough for about, I want to say, like 75% of the possessions they had, and then he started to get comfortable, and he looked pretty good. The Jahan Dotson, his touchdown was it was all Jahan Dotson. It was sick.
That happens a lot, though. You know what I mean? That's kind of the NFL if you have great players.
You get the ball in the player's hand, and he does the rest.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think something similar I saw with Love and Howell, because I did get to see bits and pieces of both of those, like actually watch it. From what I saw, it just looked like a couple young QBs who just had some jitters. And as the game went on, those jitters kind of got less. They gained a little bit more confidence. And it looked like there's things to be happy about and build on, rather than some of the other ones I saw where I'm like, there might not be a whole lot there.
So we'll, again, not enough to really make a decision on any of these guys, right? Bryce Young, I thought he looked very comfortable.
Really? Because the highlights I saw, he did not.
He made some NFL throws that looked good. Now again, they didn't score. He didn't get in the end zone, but he did make some throws that I was like, okay, those are big boy throws that it takes some good talent to do. So again, I don't think he's going to be amazing out of the box. If Derek Carr plays like he played against Kansas City, man, like Saints are going to run away with that division.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't know if Carolina is great. I mean, let's be honest. And two, we've seen a lot of guys come into the league that can make big boy throws, but they got happy feet, don't necessarily read the right coverage. They hold the ball too long. There's been a lot of guys that can do that. So just because I'm seeing him make big boy throws, like it's the other things that I saw with him where I was like, he doesn't look comfortable in the pocket.
Would you be comfortable with a bad O-line?
No, but again, when you have that kind of situation, bad things can happen real quick. You know what I mean? And you develop bad habits that way usually. Because he's not a Lamar Jackson, a Justin Fields. He can
move. He can move, but
I'm not saying he can't run. That's just not something he can do, and he definitely shouldn't. Because more so than all those other guys, even Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, they're bigger dudes. So if they take a hit, it's not going to necessarily wreck them. He takes one solid hit, it could be a lot of trouble.
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying he can't handle hits, but when you're out in that open field, it's a little bit different.
You better ice up, baby.
So I'm not writing him off. Again, no overreaction, no underreaction, anything like that. But It'll be interesting to see what he does in Carolina because I don't know if that particular thing is going to change for them.
The three biggest kind of overreactions were C.J. Stroud.
Oh, yeah.
Which, again, I have an issue. I think he had 3 pass attempts.
I was going to say, that's it. 3 throws the whole game. Like, he didn't even do anything for me to say anything.
They didn't really let him play. And
like one series? Okay.
And his game was done with the interception. Like, no, get him back out there and let's and again, it's the Patriots defense. They're good. Yeah, I get it. But, get him back out there. I thought that was a mistake by that coaching staff.
Yeah. I wasn't – obviously they got a game plan, and I've said it before. I really like D'Amico Ryan, so I'm not going to judge. But just it was weird. It was weird.
Very weird. Trey Lance is a bust. And I don't know. So I did see a guy on Twitter. He's actually part of the network. He's on the BPA Show, Boggins, and he mentioned that Trey Lance isn't good right now, but maybe in a different scheme, in different coaching, maybe he would be.
I've heard that from a lot of people. Now, actually.
The problem I have, and maybe this goes to Trey Lance, maybe he needs to get into more simplified offense, maybe dumb it down. Most quarterbacks in Shanahan, he's gotten wins from Nick Mullins and guys who are just purely backups or third stringers. He still won football games with them.
RG3, Kirk Cousins, same season.
I mean, well, those are decent quarterbacks.
But you know what I'm saying? That's 2 very different game plans.
Very different. So
I to say Shanahan can't give a game plan that Trey Lance can be good with.
Now, the situation probably is the 49ers roster is so good that they really do have a chance at the Super Bowl that you risk that on a guy who's learning, who needs to play, right?
Well, yeah, he's played 11 games in the last 3 years, 4 years, something like that.
He played in college for a season and he played 1 game right when COVID hit. I think they had 1 game and then they were done. And then he got 2 games last year before he got hurt. So he just really hasn't a lot of football, but they can't give him that opportunity to play. But what I mean,
they could because, if I've been hearing a lot of stories that he's been shining at camp.
I haven't seen any of those stories, bro. If you want to forward me those articles, I'd be happy to read them.
I'll find them. Because
I haven't seen any of that from camp. Everything at camp has been Sam Darnold looks good. Trey Lance looks confused still.
That's not what I've been seeing. I've been seeing people say he's been looking great at camp.
Well, he did not look great at all against the Ravens.
That's what I'm saying. If he's really looking great at camp, okay, then you could take a risk given what you have behind him if you truly wanted to because of what you invested to get him. You could take a risk, and if he doesn't play well after the 3rd game.
As soon as they signed Sam Darnold, I knew he was not going to play this season.
That's the thing. That's the thing. If what happens that I think is going to happen, which is Sam Darnold is the playoff quarterback for the 49ers, they're not keeping Lance or Purdy if they can help it. Maybe Purdy, because of his rookie contract being Mr. Irrelevant, he might be worth keeping.
Look, they've already said Brock Purdy would have to melt on the practice field to not be the starter this season.
Keep arguing that. I get it. I'm just saying, this is what I believe is going to happen by the season's end. That's all.
Well, you also said Jarrett Stidham was going to play, and he looked freaking atrocious. He may have looked worse than
He didn't look good. He didn't look good, but Russ didn't look great either, so let's not get carried away here.
Russ had the most pressure of any quarterback in the league this weekend.
I don't care. Stidham was 4th on that list.
He was. He was very high.
So, and here's the thing. Russ was playing with the starters. Stidham was playing with nobody. Let's just be a little bit honest. Usually the back-end quarterbacks in preseason don't look good because they're playing with really bad talent.
What I also know from camp is Stidham has been outplayed by DiNucci every practice.
I've heard that. I've heard that. So if
it's
it's
not looking
DiNucci
good.
starting, if it's DiNucci starting and not Russ or Stidham, okay. My point is still such that I would be surprised if Russ plays the whole season. I just would be.
I'm not with you guys yet. I still think Purdy's gonna come out as the starter. I didn't see anything.
Look, I've never disagreed with that, have I? I've never said he's not going to be the starter from day one. I just think Sam Darnold's going to be the one that's ending the season.
I don't think so. I mean,
I think Purdy's eight game run was a little bit magical, and I'd be surprised if he can keep that. If Purdy keeps that same level from those 8 games, he's an MVP candidate.
Sure.
You think Purdy can do that? Because I don't.
So it's possible. I will say Purdy had the easy throws. He was money on them.
It's going to be interesting to see how Stafford plays this year too, Cody.
Right, because Stafford's got that same issue, and Stafford.
He didn't have a surgery,
awful,
but he does have, I believe, the same problem.
And then
a bad UCL. So if that flares up on Stafford, then Purdy. I agree though, they don't heal that fast. So it could be interesting to see how he does.
If teams can, so it's tough to do against the 49ers because the 49ers scheme guys open almost better than anybody except for Andy Reid, right? Like they have guys running wide open, and that's what Purdy did. He hit the wide open guy. He
played really well.
He hit some throws a little bit deeper than I thought he would do. But basically he hit the open guy. If you can play man-to-man and put a little bit of rush on him, I don't think he's got the arm to really force the ball in there, and that would be a concern. But until they can do that, until a team can stop them and have guys not running wide open, we don't know. All I saw is every time he played, there was guys running wide open. He hit the open guy. I can only go off of what I've seen. There's some limitations to his game, though. There is some limitations to the game. Like, if I could take Brock Purdy's mind and put it in Sam Darnold's body, we'd be on, bro.
I don't think
Sam Darnold's got it up here.
I don't think it's as bad as everybody tries to say. That he has played with nothing and terrible O-lines in front of him. You're going to make mistakes when that happens. That's been proven throughout the history of the NFL. Your favorite thing to say, if this quarterback is protected, he's really good.
Almost, I mean, every quarterback in the NFL, if they're protected, is average, at the very least.
I think Darnold's got a bad rap from my evaluation of what I've seen. I think there's an insane amount of talent there. He hasn't had great coaching, and he hasn't had anybody around him to play with.
So I do think Trey Lance is done in San Francisco.
I'll agree with that.
I still think he's got some physical talents. If he's put in a different – I think he needs to play through the good and the bad. I think he needs to play. So he needs to get to a situation where he has that opportunity.
Here's the thing, Pinky. Here's the thing. Let's say all things equal, let's say he's coming in as a free agent, Darnold's coming in as a free agent. If they're playing equal at camp, you're going to play Darnold because he's got more upside, and you see that, and you would see that. He's just more athletic, more talented, bigger arm. That would be obvious. So if you're going to say they're even at camp, you would start Darnold. So while it's been said it's not a true quarterback competition, Purdy's the one, he's the guy until proven otherwise. If he struggles, if you have a guy who played equal to him all through camp and you believe has more potential, it wouldn't be that big of a stretch to sit the guy that's struggling and not let him play through stuff because that other guy can do the same thing, if not more. That's where I think things can start leaning when it comes to how Darnold gets his look.
Yeah, I don't think Purdy's going to play that bad to get to that point.
We'll see.
He gets hurt.
We'll see.
Obviously, yeah, Darnold's going to get a shot. Darnold plays well. They're going to ride the hot. I think Shanahan would ride the hot hand even when Purdy came back healthy, if that happened.
Yeah, absolutely, he would.
Because Shanahan's he's going to do what's best for the team.
Real quick, Ray, my thought was based on the way Stidham ended last season, playing fairly well. And the fact that, and if it's not Stidham, DiNucci played great in the XFL that he was in. Then Russ would get benched because he wasn't playing well. I don't think Sean Payton likes him, to be honest with you. I think if Sean Payton, and I'm not saying the person, I'm saying the player. I think if Sean Payton had a choice, Russ wouldn't be on the team. That wouldn't have been somebody Sean Payton went after or wanted to have as his quarterback. So I think ownership's basically told him he does whatever he wants. They'll support it because we want to win and we trust you. And if he goes to them and says, you know what, I can't win with this guy, A, B, and C are the reasons, they would have no problem letting him bench Russ. And I have said that I think there'll come a point in time this season where Russ is playing bad enough, Sean Payton starts Stidham, because I thought that was the backup at the time. If it's DiNucci, I think it would be DiNucci, honestly.
And I told you were an idiot.
You did. I don't think Russ is going to have a great year. I think he's going to have a point in time where he struggles, and I could definitely see Sean Payton switching it out. Now, I'm not saying it would be for the rest of the year. Maybe he lets Russ come back. I don't know. Maybe it's just a one-game break, a breather for Russ. But I do see at some point somebody else starting other than Russ. That's all. That's the thought.
We got one last guy to talk about. He's your favorite guy to talk about. Justin Fields.
Dude, the overreaction on the field stuff right now is blowing my mind. He had 3 throws for, like, what was it, a net -6 yards?
Yeah.
A -6 air yards, but 2 of them went for long touchdowns, and the other one was like a 20-yarder. All 3 screen passes, basically, and people are like, oh my God, look how good he's playing. Oh, Justin Fields is going to be amazing this year. Look at the weapons he has. And I'm like, whoa. There may not be a bigger Justin Fields supporter than this guy right here. And there is no way I'm looking at what he did and go, he's arrived.
So I looked at it and went, I can't judge anything from that. I can't judge anything except for DJ Moore is really awesome.
Yeah.
Because that ball was even behind him.
Yes, it was. It was
close to being dropped, and he had to go back to get it and then get his momentum going back forward.
He did.
He still went for the touchdown.
He did have to do that.
You don't see a lot of screens like that in preseason. Because guys,
it's kind of showing your hand, which a lot of coaches don't do.
You don't want to show that play, right?
Which makes me even more concerned with this coaching staff. I am so confused why the Bears would hire the staff they hired, given they wanted to stay with Fields as their quarterback. Like, what a crock of shit. Like, they didn't come from some kind of brilliant offensive minds. They weren't learning under a Shanahan for the last 5-6 years, you know what I mean? And going against him every day in practice so that you can truly learn what you need to be looking for in an offensive coordinator. No, they were from Frank Wright's staff, right?
I mean, the defensive coordinator for Frank Wright became the head coach for Chicago, Eberflus.
And he wasn't great in Indy.
And they brought Luke Getsy from Green Bay.
Yeah, and then they brought the Green Bay offensive coordinator, which, again, we know isn't truly an offensive coordinator. Like, we've learned this time and time again. The head coach and that quarterback were the ones calling plays. The other guy was just there waving his fingers at the rest of the team to do something. Like, he wasn't a true offensive coordinator, and that's who they decided to bring along.
Yeah, Biggie, I've reported back to Caleb. We gotta figure him out on his headphones, I think. We need to give him some new ones.
I don't know. They're brand new earbuds. I don't know why they're not working.
Well, Apple sucks, so there's that.
I've never had a problem.
Apple sucks, bro. Sorry.
Let's try this. Let's see if I can do this.
Yeah, they all agree with me. It's trash, Caleb. Do better. So, again, I'm not in a Justin Fields guy. I will not give – I just can't say, like, I'm not going to overreact to that because there was nothing to really evaluate. I want to see him in a game, pressure, go through the progressions, play quarterback. That's what I want to see him do.
Be nice.
That's what I want. You say he can do it. I want to see it. It's weird to say, but the Bears, like when the Bears are good, because they're like a team, like an old team, it's good for football, right? And I think like when and I think this goes for a lot of teams. When most teams are good, the rivalries are good. When the Bears are good, You watch them play the Packers, it's a rivalry. When the Bears suck and the Packers roll over them every game, there's no rivalry there, right? So want the Bears to be good again. They won't be good unless Justin Fields is good. So that was it with the young quarterbacks. There's a lot of reaction on Twitter about Fields. Either Fields is MVP or Fields is still a bust. And I was like, whoa, easy guys. Let's just relax. We didn't really see anything in that game.
Yeah, there's definitely. I think he's going to be really good still. I just don't think you can look at that game and be like, he's arrived. That's foolish.
A lot of people have. I mean, now fantasy wise, a lot of people have him very high, and they
should.
And normally, I might say that's foolhardy, but I'm not an idiot when it comes to fantasy. That guy can run the fucking football, so he is absolutely going to be. Even if he doesn't increase his passing that much, which he should with DJ Moore on the team, he would still land in the top 10.
Yeah.
So let's talk some fantasy. Let's transition over.
All right, let's do it. So look, we're going to give you our top 10 at every position. And when I say every position, I mean quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and defense. We're not going to discuss kickers. That's ridiculous. And the reason we do that is because those are the only positions you draft and play on a fantasy football team.
I have a league this year that we're playing with kickers. I didn't want to do it, but the wife was like, no, let's do kickers. And I was like, okay. But literally, if you look at the difference in points for kickers, the difference is so minuscule between 1 and 20 that they really don't matter.
No, you could stream them every week pretty much.
You could just be like, okay, I'm going to take that guy. Oh, he kicked 3 field goals. Oh, I'll cut him. Whatever.
Yeah, not a big deal. So we're not going over those rankings.
So no kickers, no defense. Oh, did you put defenses down? I don't think you did.
Yeah, I did.
Did you put down defenses? Oh, I didn't see that.
We're going to talk about defenses.
I got to come up with some value defenses then.
Look, not a lot of. Some leagues don't play with defenses at all. They just play with the position players on offense. Some leagues play with defenses. Some leagues play with IDP, individual defensive players, and they actually draft defensive players and get points off of sacks, tackles, interceptions, things of that nature. So that's why we're going to go over defenses in general, because some use them as a whole, some draft individual players. So we're not going to get deep dived on it, but we will with the other stuff. We'll give you our top 10 at every position. We'll give you some sleepers or value picks, whatever you want to think about it as. And we'll just kind of talk about some things in general and go from there.
All right, Caleb. Well, give us those top 10 QBs.
All right, so top 10 QBs. We've got in my order what I believe the top 10 are: Mahomes, Hurts, Jackson, Burrow, Allen, T-Law, and then Dak.
And we got to fix your thing, man. That suck.
Hang on.
So I would have most of those guys in the top 10 for sure. I might just move it around a little bit.
Can you hear me any better?
We can hear you loud and clear, bro.
Is it a little echoey?
There's like a little weird sound, but it's not. It's better than losing you.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm just going to take these out, because apparently it doesn't want to work.
Better.
I feel like it's like connected to my phone or something still. I don't know. I'm terrible with technology.
Better. Ooh, Biggie. I don't know about that, bro. I don't know about that.
All right, let me repeat it, since now you guys can actually hear me. I should have just done this earlier. I apologize, guys. So Mahomes, Hurts, Jackson, Burrow, Allen, Herbert, Fields, Tua, T-Law, Dak. Now, there's a couple of these that I debated, and I could move around too. But Mahomes is Mahomes, obviously. That's going to be there. Hurts and Philly are only going to get better with that offense and their chemistry and everything. And he can dual threat with the best of them. So I've got him at 2. Arguably could have been the MVP if he didn't miss those games last year. I think Lamar, with this new offense and the weapons they did add, I think he gets back to MVP form. And if he does that, then he's easily a top 3. There's no questions asked with the numbers he'll put up. I think Burrow is over Allen because I trust Burrow to make the right decisions more than I do Allen. Allen does have the running, but he throws quite a few interceptions as well. And I think Joey B could out-touchdown him with less interceptions, and he gives you a little bit of rushing capability in that offense. I like him just a slight edge over Allen. Herbert, I actually thought about putting at 4, not 6. But I still have a few question marks about the consistency of that talent around him, being able to stay on the field. But I do like the addition of Kellen Moore for Herbert. And if he stayed healthy last year, he was on verge to put up some huge numbers. And he can run the ball a little bit too. He doesn't necessarily want to, but he can. So I struggled with kind of those 3 there. Fields, I think, does a lot of great things. I don't think he just puts up huge numbers this year. I think that's still a year or 2 away. I think he looks really great this year, and I've said he could be a dark horse MVP depending on how things fall. I wouldn't have him in my top 5 MVP though.
So with Fields, I just feel like his floor is fairly high, just because of his rushing. So
Absolutely.
you're probably gonna get 20 points a game from him, and occasionally if he throws a couple touchdowns in a game, you'll get those 30-40 point games.
Exactly.
Right.
Tua, I thought about putting Tua top 3 because the numbers he was putting up last year before he got injured and that offense were actually insane. I think if he's healthy, he has a great year, but the numbers that they were doing last year were absurd. And now people have a little bit of film on that. So I don't know if they can be as hot as consistently as they were before he got injured. So that's why I have him a little lower, because he's not going to give you any rushing for the most part. So that's why he's a little bit lower, I ultimately decided. T-Law is the biggest question mark for me. I think T-Law, honestly, has the potential to finish as the number 1 QB in the league. I could see that happening this year. In all the outliers that there are, I could see a path where T-Law is the number 1 fantasy QB in the league. Now, that's going to depend on, does Calvin Ridley really come back and look amazing like people have said he is? Does Etienne and Tank Bigsby provide, a lot of things in that running game? Can the offensive line protect a little more? Does T-Law take the next step in his progressions and reads? So there's a lot that goes into that. But I think there is potential there where he could actually finish as number 1. I could see a path to that. But ultimately, I went a little conservative, and I've got him at 9. And then Dak I have at 10 just because he always seems to put up pretty good numbers if he's healthy for the year. And there's a lot of weapons on that team. There just is. So I don't think he cuts down the interceptions as much as he wants to believe. But I think he cuts them down enough and stays healthy to put up some solid numbers where he's a top 10 fantasy.
So I don't really have a lot of there's a couple placement issues I have with your list, but I don't think they're egregious.
Okay.
Except for Dak. Because I know exactly who's number 10.
Who?
It's fucking MVP, baby.
So
A-Rod.
I really wanted to put A-Rod up here. I did. You know how much I love A-Rod. But even when his thumb wasn't hurt, even when he won 2 MVPs, he wasn't putting up crazy fantasy numbers. He was putting up amazing real NFL numbers, but he wasn't putting up crazy fantasy numbers. And so I decided, look, we know how I feel about the guy. I love him. I think he's going to ball out this year. I just don't know if he puts up more than what these 10 are. Him actually and Kirk Cousins are just outside my top 10.
So we'll talk about Cousins in a moment, but I just don't have faith in the Mike McCarthy, Brian Schottenheimer offense that's never been successful. I just don't have it. I think Dak, if you get Dak at a value pick later, I think you're fine. I don't think that's horrible. I just don't think I just don't think he's going to be top 10 for you.
I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue and say he has to be 10.
And it's probably splitting hairs. You're talking Dak's probably still, in my opinion, he's probably still 10 to 15 fantasy rankings.
Sure. And I think those 10 to 15 you can easily interchange as being
Multiple
number
guys.
10. Yeah.
Right.
I would agree with that.
So I think I don't mind Jackson with his rushing, improved offense. I can see that. We just haven't seen that play from him for probably 2 years over the whole season. So I have a problem putting him at three, where I think if you take Allen or Burrow, you're going to get steady production, right? Where
Sure.
Jackson may be more boom or bust certain weeks,
I mean, when he's healthy, he's never a
But
boom or bust.
At the top, I mean, if you get any of those dudes, I mean, to me, if you get Mahomes, Hurts, Jackson, Burrow, Allen, Herbert, you're not mad at all. Like,
Should be.
Yeah, they're going to they're going to definitely provide you good fantasy value every single week. So I don't think you would be mad about any of that. Herbert's the one that could pop, possibly. Kellen Moore likes to throw the football, so there's some opportunity there. If Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Quentin Johnson are all on the field together, that
Austin Eckler,
Everett, I mean, that could get pretty dangerous.
yes.
There's some opportunities there. So, like I said, I don't disagree with most of this list. I do find Fields, again, I think he gives you a pretty high floor every week. So I don't think anybody would be mad about that. Tua, you're not wrong. Tua fantasy wise was amazing until he got hurt.
Real life wise, he was amazing. Like, he was one of those where both were off the chains to start.
He was doing some really, really good stuff. He definitely changed my opinion of him. The only thing is you're carrying the injury risk. So
it's a big one, and that's why I ultimately have him at
if you can get Tua at a good value, I'd be super happy with that. T-Law, I still think they're going to run the ball enough. I don't know if his fantasy numbers are going to take that like gigantic leap.
If you had to guess, what would you say his numbers are? Because I've kind of got an idea in my head.
I mean, I think he could throw for 44,000. I mean, he could probably get 25 to 30 touchdowns somewhere in there. It's probably realistic. But
how many interceptions would you say he throws?
He's going to throw 10 to 15.
Okay.
He's more of a gunslinger than you think.
So we're actually not that far off, surprisingly. I think it's going to be about 4,100. I think he goes for about 30 to 32 touchdowns and about 10 to 12 interceptions. But I also think he's going to give you another 400 rushing yards or so, 300 to 400 somewhere in there, and a couple touchdowns.
So, Biggie, you're not wrong. The injury history is a concern, but what he was doing without the injuries, like, he is in the conversation for MVP last season.
Biggie, keep in mind, this is fantasy. This isn't real life. So if you want to argue real life and say he's not top 15, I'd say you're crazy, but I can understand more that you're talking about the injury. Fantasy is all about potential. It's all about what does that boom look like. You're not worried about it as much about the bust potential.
Now, again, to me, Tua, T-Law, if you can get them at good value, I feel like you're going to be super excited about them. Now, if you draft Tua, obviously that means you better go and get another quarterback that you feel good about as well, just in case.
Absolutely.
Right? Got to protect yourself.
Here's something else to think about. If you're drafting quarterbacks, value all depends on the way your draft is progressing. You know, you got a 10 team, a 12 team. You're playing PPR, non-PPR. You're playing 4-point touchdown, 6-point touchdown passing. There's a lot of factors of what a boom or bust looks like. But here's the deal. If your draft is taking quarterback the first 2 rounds and you're down to Dak Prescott by the middle of the second, if that's what your league does, then getting Dak in the middle of the second isn't bad value. because everybody else
You're-
already went, and
you're-
you wanted a
you're-
top 10 guy.
You're going to see that more in a super flex league if there's a quarterback
I'm
premium.
just saying, regardless of what league it is, if that just happened to be your league drafted that year.
I play in a super flex league where literally like the top like 8 players are quarterbacks, and then one running back goes, maybe the top wide receiver, and then you see a bunch of quarterbacks again, and you're getting great value on running backs in round 3 because again,
Right.
quarterbacks have a premium in that league.
Right. So it just depends. So we're not talking about like what rounds we should be thinking about you guys should be drafting them in, because we would only do that if we're talking very specific league criteria. We're just giving you how we feel these guys, the order they should be drafted in. That's kind of what we're talking about.
So I had 4 value picks. Tua is one of my value picks, I think.
Okay.
But I agree.
Would you have him in your top 10? Like, you wouldn't take him out, right? The only one you would change out is Dak.
I would have him in my top 10, but he would be at that like 7, 8, 9, 10 range just because, again, you got to factor in the risk, right? My value picks are Kirk Cousins is my number 1 value pick. He is going to give you a solid line week in and week out. Now, he's going to have that stinker. He has them. But for the most part, like his lines last year were great.
Kirk Cousins I love, but
So,
I'm not giving him a value pick per se, because I think he could be in the top 10, and I'm not giving any guy in the top 10 a value pick because I can make an argument for each guy why you should take them first.
So
in the top 10.
we know that Kirk Cousins is probably right around that top 10, but he doesn't get picked in that top 10. That's why he's a value pick. Because people don't realize, like, they see Kirk Cousins and they don't really realize what he's doing week to week. Whereas then if you're a real fantasy guy, you know that dude's giving you a solid floor or solid game every week.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Except for that stinker, because he'll throw that
Biggie,
stinker out there.
Sir, I'm not sure what kind of scoring system you're playing in, but the difference between Mahomes and Baker Mayfield should be a minimum of 10 points. Minimum.
Oh, it's a gigantic difference
Minimum.
between those
I'm
two.
going to pull
Again,
something up here.
when you pick that quarterback, it's all about the league you play in. Some leagues, you'll have guys that's like running backs go, like you're getting thin at running back by the 3rd round. So yeah, you're not worried about taking a quarterback because nobody else is taking one. There's other leagues that quarterbacks go a lot earlier, where again, you've got to try to find out where's your value to take that guy. Now, I do play in one league where the value of the quarterback is so high, like so high. Like it's 6-point QB touchdowns. QBs get a point per completion, or not a point, but 0.25 per completion, and they get the 25 yards, and they get like long touchdown bonuses and all that. Like when you add it up, like it's not crazy to see a quarterback score 50 like easy in that league. So quarterbacks and it's a super flex, and you can only have 2 QBs. Like you can't roster more than 2. So that puts that added value on trying to get 2 good ones as soon as you can. It is all about like how your league rules and point system that really generates like, where that value is. So
exactly. So here's the thing.
Kirk up there.
And again, that's why these are general rankings, because depending on your league, some of these guys can move up or down depending on the added bonus points that are built into the scoring system, right? These are just kind of our overall general rules, PPR settings. That's it. Real quick, Patrick Mahomes' low year where he played all 16 games was 481. Baker Mayfield's high when he played all 16 games was 322. So that's literally, in Baker's best season, the gap is 10 points a game. Every other year it was even more. So, Big E, unless you're drafting a guy late that you believe has a lot of potential, a young talent coming up that you can see big things from, you don't go after your Baker Mayfields, your Jimmy Garoppolos. Like, those are guys you usually avoid because the boom is never that great and the bust is wild. That's our thought process.
And Biggie, when you look at it over the whole season, that drop off may be only a couple points per game. But when you are playing and you've got a quarterback that's only scoring you 10 points and another guy's and you could draft a quarterback that's averaging 20 a game, it's a big difference. It definitely
is.
the whole idea, like, you want to draft a team that's going to average a certain amount of points every week.
Yep.
And that gives you the best chance to win overall. However you put that together. So
the highest floor can usually get through all the way.
we've got quite a few things to get through. So my other value pick, Geno Smith.
I love that.
I'm not a huge Geno guy.
No, you're not. I'm not a huge Geno guy either.
He played really good though until like the last 4 or 5 weeks. That's when he started to like.
But he played like the best defenses those last 4 or 5 weeks. So
he did. So it kind of showed some of that old Geno.
He threw for over 4,000 yards last year and like 35 touchdowns.
Over 30 touchdowns. Like,
yeah, like he's not going to have like a drop off, I don't think.
I don't know if, like, I still think in critical moments he may turn back into a pumpkin. Possibly. Fantasy wise, though, I think he's still going to have a good year.
Yeah, that's the thing. That pumpkin, he could have you 26 points on the night, and that pumpkin is a bad interception that in real life kills you. But in fantasy, it's just -2 points, and you're still getting 24 out of him. So it's not a big deal.
In real football, I think he's going to make the mistakes that might cost him the game. But in fantasy, I think he's going to be completely fine and would do well for you on your roster. And I don't think enough people have him pinpointed as, I can get really good football out of that guy and get good points. And I don't have to draft him until, 8th, 9th round or whatever.
If it wasn't for his age, I would say he's the new Kirk Cousins.
That's a good one.
But they're basically the same age. So, cheers, my guy.
Cheers. We agree on something.
Thanks. So with them being the same age, I can't really call him the new Kirk Cousins.
I'm going to throw this out there right now. Orange glasses completely on. I think Russ is a good fantasy value because everybody's going to be like, that dude's awful. I think he's going to provide good value this season.
I can give you a lot of guys I would rather have over Russ in fantasy.
But I think you can get Russ really late. That doesn't.
There's really late guys that I would much rather have, to be honest with you. Here's the deal. People might laugh at this, but fantasy-wise, it's a steal where I believe he'll be able to get drafted, and that's Daniel Jones. I think that's crazy value. I think he's only going to get better this year with Dayball. He gives you a solid floor in rushing. He's going to be better passing the ball this year because he's actually got somebody to throw it to in Waller. So I think he's a steal because he's going at like quarterback 18, something like that. And I think he has the potential to easily put up close to top 10 numbers.
Well, Caleb, I don't hate that, but I think he hit his ceiling.
You think year one in Daboll's offense was his ceiling?
I do. So the one thing about Daniel Jones last season that he was very lucky, he didn't turn the ball over, which had been one of his biggest issues.
He didn't have a lot of turnovers previously. He just had bad timing with them.
No, he had really high turnovers, bro. They weren't Jameis Winston level turnovers, but they were high turnovers for a starting quarterback. So I still think he's good value.
No, 5, 7, 10, 12. He's lowered it each season he's played. 12 his rookie year, 10 his sophomore year, then 7, and then 5.
Are you looking at interceptions or are you looking at fumbles too?
Interceptions. Look.
Add fumbles in there too, and then tell me.
He had a little bit of issues with fumbles. I don't know how many he had last year. The app tracker doesn't tell you fumbles lost.
Look, his fumbles were an issue for most of his career until last season. The fumbles and the interceptions were way down.
Well, when you're in a better offense, you don't see ghosts. It's things change. And one thing you can learn is how to not fumble the ball. Like that can be taught.
To me, he's still good value. I just don't think he's going to give you much better than what he had last season.
Cody, I think Saquon, Waller, and I think a sneaky good pickup that they had that he's not necessarily a number 1, but they have a lot of number 2s on that team with him, this guy, and Slayton and some other receivers that it might be okay. Paris Campbell could be a sneaky guy, and we'll get to that later. You laugh, Pinky, but even you said if he's on the field, he's talented.
Yeah, but he's never on the field because he's always hurt.
Didn't he play 16 games last year?
Did he? I don't know.
Let's check. I'll check it. I'm just saying, I think Daniel Jones has slightly more weapons than people realize. I think the offensive line will get a little bit better. In year 2 under Daboll's offense is good. Does he have the same kind of weapons that, they added around T-Law or Hurts or, even Fields this last year? No, he doesn't. And Waller has to stay healthy too. I mean, that's kind of been an Achilles heel of his over the last couple years. So we'll see what happens. But everybody on the field with Saquon and whatnot, I think that offense is actually kind of dangerous. I think it has some potential to be, I should say. Let's check. Paris Campbell. Played all 17 games last year.
Well, what was his output, though?
Well, I mean, that offense was trash, right?
I know, but what was his output, even though it was trash?
63 catches, 623 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
It's okay.
In that offense, that's pretty good, actually.
It's okay. I'm still not thinking about him as anything more than a wide receiver 4 or 5.
He's better than that. The talent's more. I fully believe that. So I think he's a sneaky play. We'll talk about that later with wide receivers. So yeah. We'll see. I like Daniel Jones. The other name I like, actually, if you want to go really deep, and I think is actually going to be great value, I think Kenny Pickett has a pretty solid year. I think he has a pretty solid year. That offensive line has improved.
Not much.
I think it has. I think it's going to be quite a bit better, to be honest with you. It's rare that there's that much of a trash offensive line in Pittsburgh. And I think there are a sane amount of weapons on that offense.
Gotta hold my nose to that one. That one's stinky, bro.
No way, dude. Look at those weapons. And he played pretty decent last year.
He played okay.
As a rookie with that offensive line, he played.
But then again,
decent.
I don't think he has much room for growth though, either. I think he's okay, average.
We'll see.
Like maybe he's better than Kyle Orton by the time things are done. But
Kyle Orton threw for over 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns with the Broncos, did he not?
He did not.
I think he might have.
He did not, bro.
Think he might have.
He did not. I'm pretty confident about that. I would bet you a bottle of whiskey right now that did not happen.
I do believe he did that.
You want a bottle of whiskey?
No, I don't have any money right now, Pinky.
Oh, well, see? Gotta put your money where your mouth is, bro.
Well, if you don't have any money, you can't put it where your mouth is.
I mean,
so you just have to say you're confident.
I mean, you can't be that confident.
Well, yeah, I don't bet with what I don't
Denver, 3,821 touchdowns. That doesn't sound like 4,030 touchdowns. His second season, 3,620 touchdowns.
Oh, boy.
So your memory is I don't know what it. I don't.
38's pretty close. I was off about the touchdowns, but 38's pretty close.
And that's only because Brandon Lloyd had like 1,500 that year.
Well, yeah, that helps. Just saying, that's almost 4,000. It's not like he was throwing for 3,200.
At the end of the day, you were still wrong. So
I said like 4,000. I didn't say 4,000.
I don't.
But fine, I'm wrong.
If I had to draft Kenny Pickett, I would feel pretty disgusted by that, and that's just my opinion.
I won't at all. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Freiermuth, Pat Freiermuth.
They never use the tight end in that offense.
Warren. Right? What?
They don't use the tight end enough in that offense to make Freiermuth is actually a really good tight end. They don't use him enough to make him, fantasy relevant.
He's a top 10 fantasy tight end. So yeah, they do. Yeah, for sure. For sure, dude. Absolutely.
All right, move on to running backs.
Move right on to them. Go right into the running backs. I've got, all right, running backs. CMC, Eckler, Barkley, Chubb, Taylor, Henry, Najee, Etienne, Bijan Robinson, and Pollard at 10. So CMC, I think, is obvious. What he did in the Shanahan offense last year when he got there was absurd. If he's on the field, he's insane. He's easily RB1. Eckler had a great year last year. RB1, insane numbers, no arguments. Can he do it again? I think so. I think he can. And if you want to say you're going to take Eckler over CMC because of injury risk, and Eckler's less likely, okay, I'm not going to be mad at that. I think CMC scores more points if they both play all 17 games. And I don't think CMC is necessarily injury prone. I think he has an injury history, but I don't think he's injury prone. And I think Shanahan will use him much smarter and save some wear and tear on his body to where 17 games shouldn't be an issue. Barkley, again, same situation. I don't think he's injury prone. I think he had an injury history. I think he plays the whole season, and he'll be right there with CMC and Eckler by the end of the year. Chubb, I think, is the best running back in the league, but I don't think Cleveland understands that, and so they don't give him 3-down potential. But the reason he's at 4 is because I've heard rumors that he will be looked at in more 3-down situations this year rather than coming off the field. And if that's true, he could be pushing for top of the line. We'll have to see how much passing game work he truly gets. Taylor, I have at 5 only because of the offense. He can put up numbers like the rest of the big boys, but that offense is going to struggle a little bit with a rookie quarterback, new head coach. There's going to be some things that even if all things are clicking, it's still not going to click as much as it can be in the future.
Yeah, that O-line better play a whole lot better than they played last year.
Exactly. So Taylor's limited. Henry is only at 6 because he doesn't get passing game work. If he got passing game work, he would be him or CMC. Pick your poison. But he could still run for 2,000, I think, and 20 touchdowns. I think he's still very much got that potential in him. Does that offense? I don't know. Harrison and Etienne, you can flip-flop them however you want to. I think I said Harrison first and then Etienne. I actually like Etienne more than Harris. Sorry if I said it that way. I think Etienne could easily go for 1,200 rushing yards and another 600 or 700 passing yards this year. I think he has a big year with quite a few touchdowns. Harris, I think, will have a much better year. I think his yards per carry will finally get up into the 4s rather than being the low 3s because I do think that offensive line has improved. I do think Kenny Pickett will have a good year. Those weapons on the outside will help open up some space, and I think he'll look pretty decent this year. And he's part of the passing game. I just think Jaylen Warren, I think they like what they got from him last year, and they're going to give him more touches, which will eat into Harris's production a little bit. Bijan, I have at 9 because I don't know how they don't put the ball in his hands and give him a lot of touches. But I also feel like they still really like Cordarrelle Patterson and Tyler Algier enough to give them solid work. So I could actually see a path where Robinson is actually more touches in the passing game than he does in the running game his first year. I don't think that's going to happen, but I could see a path where that does, which wouldn't. So I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me if that went down that way. And then I've got Pollard at 10 because I don't believe he can be a full 3-down back. I've said that from the very beginning. I think he's super explosive when you give him about 15 to 18 touches a game. But I don't think that gives you enough touches to be above some of these other guys. And he's coming off of a really major knee surgery. And unless you're Adrian Peterson, for the most part, guys aren't back at their full strength that first year after.
He didn't tear an ACL, though, right?
No, I don't think so.
It was more like a PCL or
something like that. Let me look it up again.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest issue I have with your list right now is I would put Harris at 10. I think there's way more value in Robinson and Etienne for sure. Etienne did well for me last season. I would probably kick Harris out of the top 10. Actually, I'm sorry. I'd probably kick Pollard out of the top 10. Harris would be at 10, and I would have Josh Jacobs in here if he's playing.
So, yes.
Contract situation.
And the reason I didn't put him on the top 10, because actually I think you could have him as high as 6 with the year he had last year. He's not in there because he said he's not playing unless he gets a new deal. So I'm going to hold him at his word. He's not in camp. All these other guys are.
There is no way he – well, now he's
I don't think he'll actually sit, Pinky. But the problem is even if he sits the first couple of weeks, he's already out of the top 10.
He's in that weird situation. He has to come back by like week 9 or 10 or something to get a season. So he does have that leverage if he can hold till that time. I really want to feel like the Raiders are just going to rescind the tag and let him walk. That's what I feel like they're going to do. But I think they're going to wait till the last minute.
Tony Pollard wasn't a knee. What is wrong with us? He fractured his fibula.
So he should be okay.
No, even that's still not an injury where you get all your burst back right away.
I mean, I don't really have Pollard to me as a guy, like if you get him as your second running back, I don't think you're mad. But yeah, I don't want him in my top 10 myself.
And there's some other guys that I thought about putting there. Honestly, I thought about putting Dalvin Cook there. But what does Breece Hall look like? How much carries do they really split?
So the last running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, I picked 3 guys that I felt were like value picks. Dalvin Cook was one of them.
Yeah, I like that. It just
perfect situation. Perfect situation. He's
going to get more touches to start the year, and if he's hot, then they'll ease Breece Hall back as the number 2, and Dalvin will stay relevant and have some really good fantasy value. As a steal, I know it's kind of a high risk, high reward kind of thing. I, as a value, really like James Cook in Buffalo. I think he gets enough touches to have top 10 potential because of how dangerous that offense is. But I see him more around probably 16, 17 maybe. But as your second running back, or depending on how you want to go, maybe even your third running back, God, that would be a steal and a half.
I still think he's really good. My next 2 guys, I really think DeAndre Swift is going to look really good behind that Philly O-line.
I actually thought about putting him in the top 10. I think I have him at about 12, honestly. Because even if he's not the full-time running back, as far as actually running the ball, and Rashad Penny is healthy enough to be the running back, I think Swift could have an easily top 10 fantasy value in that offense for sure. So I love that. I struggle putting him over Pollard actually for a period in time, but there's so many mouths to feed in Philly. And with them not necessarily committing him as the number 1 and Dallas saying Pollard is the number 1, that kind of weighs the difference.
What do they do in Philly? They run the football.
Absolutely. And they'll use him in the passing game too.
Yes.
So there's some serious steal potential there.
I think DeAndre Swift is probably like my biggest like boom player at the running back position. I really think you can get good value from him. And Biggie already mentioned it. I've got my orange glasses. I think Javonte Williams will be a good value for you.
No
way. His ADP is super low right now.
Dude, he's coming off. We were wrong about Pollard. Our bads. Can't believe we forgot it was a fractured leg. Javonte Williams tore like everything in his knee. There's a reason they got Samaje Perine. There is no way I see Williams averaging more than at best like 7 points a game in standard PPR scoring, and that's not good.
I think you would be missing out, my friend, because I think he is going to still be really good this season. And
Peyton loves to use dual backfields. He's always done it. He was one of the first to do it.
Absolutely. But you know what? They're going to run the football.
Yeah, but
playing,
Williams just isn't going to have the same burst and athleticism he had before.
Maybe you, according to everything I've seen in camp, there's been no limitations from him. He looks great. We'll find out next week. He's playing in San Francisco. We'll find out.
Maybe I'm just trying not to get too excited, and I take my orange glasses off whenever they say that about him coming out of camp, because I think they're just trying to hype him up.
He's playing this week in San Francisco.
I know.
After ACL tear like week 4, right?
I know. Here's the other thing, and I'll end on this. I don't trust the Broncos offensive line even a little bit. So the knee injury combined with the split carries, combined with the offensive line, I don't want any part of him this year. Now, if you're dynasty, you're excited for the future, but in redrafts, I think there's better value that you can get.
I mean, he's going late though, right now.
Like 5th or 6th round.
That's where you take some risk.
Dude, 5th or 6th round, you should still be getting starting wide receiver or your tight end, or maybe even looking at a quarterback depending on things are falling. You're not taking a 3rd running back there.
I mean, I normally have a 3rd running back before that round, but
I'm saying value-wise, I would take a 3rd running back easily there. I'm saying not him as your 3rd running back when there's other value around that.
I would take him as a 3rd running back, like no questions asked.
He's going in the same area as Dalvin Cook. Would you take him over Dalvin Cook? I can't believe you even have to think about that. That's crazy to me.
Dalvin Cook's really good. I don't know what their plan for Breece Hall is. I don't know if he's healthy, if he's ready. If Breece Hall is ready, I mean, he came off PUP today. If Breece Hall is ready, Breece Hall's really fucking good too, bro.
I know. I agree.
There's only so many touches. Like, Javonte Williams healthy is way better than Samaje Perine. Period.
Yeah, for sure.
So if he is healthy, like they say
I'd have to know he's 100%. And we'll find out more. But as of right now, I'm just saying I'm staying away from him.
So I think you have a higher per game with Javonte than you have with Dalvin if Breece is healthy, because they're going to give Breece the ball too. They're going to split that. That's going to be an RBC, bro. That's going to be a running back by committee.
The team is better with Dalvin, and he'll get passing work, which Javonte really won't get. That's going to be Samaje. So that's.
I don't know, man. Javonte does really good in pass pro. That was one of the good things that he really was good at. So he's going to be in there on passing downs too. We'll have to see. We disagree. We not the first time we disagree on something.
Fair. I got one more.
Go ahead. I was out. I'm out.
Antonio Gibson, I think, has a good year with Eric Bieniemy. If you want to take him as your 3rd running back, I think it's great value, because I believe they'll finally use him in the passing game, which is what he's absolutely great at coming out of college. He was a wide receiver at Memphis, not a running back. So the fact that they never used him in the passing game before that blew my mind. So I think he's a steal. He's going later than Javonte.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that value there a whole lot in Eric Bieniemy's offense.
People have forgot about him. So, yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I worry about their offense as a whole. Sam Howell, the offensive line, the play calling. I still think Gibson can give you pretty good fantasy on a week-to-week basis. So, yeah, I love that. Love that.
Word.
All right, give us your wide receivers. Let's go.
Okay. I feel like these are kind of straightforward. But I have a feeling people are going to have an issue with one of them, and I'll explain myself why. But Jay Jetta, then Chase, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Cooper Kupp, Amon St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, and then I struggled with Waddle or Adams. And I'll explain why here in a second. Justin Jefferson's a no-brainer at 1. Chase is a no-brainer at 2. I could actually see those flip-flopping this year, to be honest with you. But either way, that's 1 and 2. I think Tyreek Hill has another huge year. I could see him being the wide receiver 1. Again, I just trust those 2 quarterbacks above him more than I trust Tua, so that's why he's at 3. Diggs and Lamb, I think, are actually interchangeable as well. I actually see them as very similar players. really damn good, but they're in flawed offenses to an extent. Allen does turn the ball over, and Dallas and Dak kind of turns the ball over. We also don't really trust Mike McCarthy so much, so see how that plays out. I think A.J. Brown could have a better year than he had last year, which could put him in top 3 potential. But I think Devontae Smith is also on the rise, so his potential might stay the same or come down a little bit while Devontae's goes up, kind of similar to Tyreek and Waddle. The only difference is Tyreek can outrun everything if he catches the ball, so that's why he continues to be at that elite level above AJ. I've got Kupp here at 7 because I don't like the offense that is in Cali with the Rams right now. I'm a little concerned about Stafford and his elbow. That offensive line got even worse. Super Bowl year, it was okay. Last year, it was bad. I feel like it's even worse this year. So I think Kupp struggles to put up those elite numbers, but still top 10 numbers because Stafford's going to stuff the ball down his throat, right? Like, that's just what it is. I think St. Brown has a big jump. I think he was slightly inconsistent last year, but still had really good numbers. I think he's fully consistent this year. I think that offense is just as good, if not better, and I really like what his potential is. Garrett Wilson, that's pretty obvious. He's got Aaron Rodgers now. And he had really good numbers last year with no-name quarterbacks. Garrett Wilson could actually be in the top 2 conversation by the end of the year, depending on how certain things fall. Whether that's just overall as points or that's, yards or touchdowns. I see him kind of in that top 2 category potential. Similar as I could see T-Law being the top quarterback in certain situations. I could see Garrett Wilson being in the top 2 receivers by the end of the season in certain situations. And then Waddle Adams, the reason I struggle with this, and I don't necessarily like to put 2 dudes from the same team in the top 10, just because that's a lot of mouths to feed.
But they were most of last season.
That's exactly what I was going to say, though. They were before Tua went down. That's just what both of them were doing. T. Higgins is very similar with Chase. T. Higgins is just on the outside looking in. I've got him probably 11 or 12 because of Waddle and Adams sitting here tied for 10. Adams, the thing about Adams is he top 10 potential? Easily.
Bro, that Adams is top 5 if he had a quarterback.
If he played with somebody other than Jimmy G and they were going to be able to sling the ball enough to give him the numbers to be that high, I'd have him that high. Talent-wise, he's there. Opportunity-wise, I don't think he gets it. So that's why it's between him and Waddle at 10, and then one of them moves down, and then I got about T. Higgins sitting right there at 12, Devontae Adams at 13. That's kind of where I see it.
Okay. So there's only one thing on this list that I don't agree with.
Okay.
A.J. Brown would be ahead of Diggs and Lamb for me.
Thought about it. I thought about it. And again, the reason I didn't was because I think his numbers stay the same or regress slightly, and Devontae Adams come up. That's the only reason.
If you get any of these guys, I think you're still happy. Like, sure. I don't like any of these guys in the top 10, you're happy. Biggie, to your point, DK Metcalf has that talent, but they run the football enough that he doesn't get enough volume to be top 10.
Well, and not just running. Lockett's more of the possession receiver, or has been, and DK's more of the big play guy, so he doesn't get the same amount of just looks in the passing game.
When you look at football and what you see from DK Metcalf, that dude's a monster. He could make plays. He could definitely be a top 3 fantasy tight end or fantasy wide receiver.
Yeah,
he's just not because he doesn't get that volume.
Biggie, I got Kupp right after Brown. I've got Kupp at 7.
Jimmy G will be able to play. I don't know if he'll be able to play well. I don't know. Jimmy G
healthy has always played well. He just hasn't played great.
Well, hold on. Jimmy G has always – this is the one, unknown. Jimmy G has always had a great team around him. The 49ers for the last 4 years, roster-wise, play calling, coaching, was great. And he won games.
Yeah.
Was that because he was that good? Was that because he didn't really mess up, right? He messed up in some critical situations in some cases, but he played okay overall. But the rest of that roster is stacked. So I'm not a big believer in Jimmy G on his own. Definitely not a big believer in Jimmy G under Josh McDaniels. I'm not excited about Adams. I still think Adams has a good floor. I still think he'll get his. I just don't know if you're going to get like normally Adams is top 5.
Yeah.
If he had a quarterback, being top 10, that's like being 10 or 11. Like that's probably the right spot for Adams right now. Let me go to my value plays here.
Let me hear him.
So you already mentioned one of my value plays, and that was Devontae Smith. High volume. That guy was crazy good. People are guarding A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith is open. And Jalen Hurts throws him the ball, right? They have a connection. And you still got to put a good draft. Like Devontae Smith's not going to go super late. But
Right,
if you missed out on that top 10 and you grab Devontae Smith, I think you'll still be good as him being your number 1 for next season. If you miss out on some of those top 10 guys. All right, it's all about roster creation, how you set it up.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I'm pretty high on Devontae Smith. I know you'll like this next one. I've got Calvin Ridley as my second value guy.
So I guess it depends on whether or not you're making him your 1 or your 2, like what strategy you're going with. If you get him as your 2, I'd say that's decent value.
Yeah. Like I don't think you want to draft him as number 1, like rely on him.
Well, I think you could. I think in certain strategies, if you want to go running back heavy to start, you could look at him as your first wide receiver off the board, and I wouldn't hate that. I just think there's a big what if with him that I don't know if I call him value. That's where I struggle.
It's been a couple years since he's put up a great fantasy season, but when he was healthy, he had Matt Ryan. He put up a great year. I think he has that potential in an offense that is growing and getting better. So I think you can get good value out of Calvin Ridley. So I think that's a good idea.
I don't hate that, Pinky.
My third guy is going later. Again, with those orange glasses, I think you can get good value out of Jerry Jeudy.
Damn. That's my value, actually. I actually like Jeudy as value at wide receiver 2.
If you look at his numbers last season.
Cheers, my guy.
Season,
cheers.
He was in the top, I want to say he was in the top 5 wide receivers to end the season.
He was.
The last 4 or 5 games. His connection with Russell Wilson got better as the season went on.
I agree. Even if I don't think Russ is going to have a great year, I think Jeudy does.
And
we agree there.
There were 2 plays from the Broncos game that made me feel really good. The first one, he dropped the ball. But if you watch the play on third down near the end zone or red zone, Jerry Jeudy is going to run an inside route, realizes that Russ is scrambling, and changes his route, goes to the outside. Russ hits him. He does drop it, but that tells me he understands what Russ is doing, right?
Right, but that's the kicker is he dropped it. That's why you're not, even though he ended last season top 5, in the last 4 games, whatever, he was a top 5 wide receiver. That's why you're not drafting him as a wide receiver 1, because he's showing he still has that propensity. That's the kicker. But even with that, he's going to put up good numbers.
So saw that in the following play, he literally made the guy
fall down and then
fall down
right into the end zone.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I think with Peyton being able to scheme up plays for him, Russ having a better feel for where Judy's going to be, what to do, I just feel like those guys are going to make it happen. So I do feel like that's a good value play. I could add, from what we've seen in camp, what we've seen in preseason so far, I could add Cortland Sutton in there too, because he's going
Stop taking my stuff.
Real
Stop
late.
Taking my stuff.
Real late.
I actually could see a scenario that's fairly probable in my mind, where Sutton and Jeudy put up almost identical numbers. I think that's the most likely outcome. And I could see them both being around the 18 to 24 range, both of them right in there in overall wide receiver points this season. And that's just because I don't think Russ is going to have a great year. But I could see them easily both going for over 1,000 yards. And both
you're almost contradicting yourself, because if they both have a good year, he's going to have a decent year fantasy-wise.
I've already said I think Russ throws for about 3,800 yards. 35. Somewhere in that ballpark, maybe.
He threw for 35 last season.
Right.
He was fucking awful.
I'm just saying. That's the path I see.
He's going to throw more than that if he's better this year.
I don't – look, again, that's where I see it. But just because he's doing that doesn't mean you can't have 2,000-yard wide receivers, especially because there's not much else to throw the ball to. So I think they could be very similar, and they're getting drafted miles apart.
Judy's going pretty – I mean, he's going 6th round, I think. Where
Sutton's going like 10 or 11.
10, yeah.
It's a giant gap. But I do like both of them as value, so we're good there.
Sutton's got good value.
Here's some other ones for you. I've got a couple with wide receivers. I like Christian Kirk and Mike Evans as wide receiver 2 potential, and they're going a little bit later, both of them. I don't see Christian Kirk's numbers falling off by any means, and he put up top 25 last year.
I mean, Ridley could eat into those numbers a little bit.
I think that offense only gets better. I don't think it regresses. And I think Kirk gets a little bit more touches this year compared to Zay Jones and who is the other one?
If you draft Christian Kirk late, because he is going later, I don't hate that at all. But I'm saying
if you draft him as a wide receiver too, I think it's good value.
I think Calvin Ridley will eat that. Justin Jefferson going in the 3rd and 5th round, you're drafting with idiots. If that's the case, Biggie.
Yeah.
Or are you talking Jerry Jeudy? And Jerry Judy's not going before the 5th or 6th in most mock drafts I'm doing right now.
Yeah. So I like Kirk and Mike Evans as your wide receiver 2. If you want to go running back heavy, I like where both of them are falling. I also like now, you might not like this, but I think OBJ is going late enough where he's good value in that offense. You're asking for, no injuries, but by all accounts, he's got a hell of a connection with Lamar Jackson right now. And I think that's great value there as a 3rd wide receiver. The other 2 that I really like, I like Nico Collins as a late, 4th wide receiver down in Houston. I think he's got a lot of potential down there. And a sneaky one that could end up wide receiver 1 in Kansas City, Justin Ross, who's going undrafted in some situations.
Who just got hurt today and went off on a cart, so we'll see.
I'm just saying, value-wise, talent-wise, he could easily end up as wide receiver 1 in KC.
Before he left on a cart today, you're probably right. But
if you're getting him as your last pick, it's still worth it.
Depends on what the injury ends up being.
Well, if he's out for the season, then yeah, don't do it. But obviously, we'll see. We'll see. So that's some wide receiver value there. Ready for tight ends?
I'm ready, baby. Hit me.
I think these first 3, to me, are no-brainers, just because they've shown they can do it, and I think they're going to all get the work to eat. Kelsey 1, Andrews 2, Waller 3. I've got Hawkinson 4, Kittle 5, Goddard 6, then Pitts and Njoku at 7 and 8, which I think are kind of interchangeable, but both sitting there at 7 and 8. I've got Freiermuth at 9, and I've got Ingram at 10. So, again, first 3, they're there because they're there. They're going to eat. That's just what it is.
I've definitely got some opinions on this.
Hawkinson, I think there's a lot of mouths to feed, but he proved last year that he was one of the mouths they like to feed, and he did well with it, so I like him at 4. Kittle, he just hasn't put a full season together, so I can't trust him to be number 1, even though he'll put up number 1 numbers, if he's proven he's not going to be on the field. So I've got him below those guys just for consistency's sake, to be honest with you. Goddard, I think he keeps improving, and I think him, Smith, and obviously A.J. Brown could all go close to 1,000 yards and close to 10 touchdowns, I think that offense can be that prolific in the passing game, and Jalen Hurts likes Goddard. Pitts, I'm unsure about just as much as I'm unsure about Njoku. Crazy talent, but do they get the work? I don't know. I don't know if they truly get enough options to be any higher than that 7 or 8 value. Same with Freiermuth, like you've said. He gets the yards, he'll get the catches. He doesn't quite get the touchdowns. So, again, a lot of mouths to feed that they do feed. I'm not sure if he'll get quite the work to jump up into that higher elevation. And Ingram, I don't necessarily like at 10, but he was top 10 last year. They proved they like throwing the ball to him. I think he has just as good a season as he did last year. So with that being said, it's hard to leave him out.
All right. First thing, I got Hawk over Waller. Minnesota used Hawkinson. As soon as they got him, he was used awesome. Yeah,
I don't disagree with that.
He was a fantasy machine. I don't know what I'm going to get from Waller in New York, and that's why I take Hawkinson over Waller. As a mismatch, Waller's absolutely a mismatch over like most guys. But in that offense, I know Minnesota's going to throw the ball to Hawk a lot. Okay.
I just kind of saw the years he went off in with Oakland about the same as what New York's going to be.
Possibly. And it should be. Waller's a mismatch.
Yeah. So that's why he's done it.
In the West Coast offense, they throw the ball to the tight end in the end zone quite a bit. I'm going with Hawk in that case. You're splitting hairs. I would take Hawk over Waller.
That's fine. Opinion. And I don't hate that. 3 or 4 right there. Good.
So I would put Goddard over Kittle because I think the consistency with Goddard is more than the injury risk with Kittle.
And that's fair.
If you knew Kittle was healthy for the whole season, like Kittle's probably a top 3 guy.
You could put him at 1 and I wouldn't be mad about it.
But he's not.
Right. Agreed.
He blocks, he plays hard, like he gets injured. That's just what happens.
Absolutely.
Pitts has the talent to be top 3 and the physicality to be top 3, but what's the quarterback situation there? Right.
Yeah, and Arthur Smith has proven he's a run first dude.
Right.
So
right.
You got to feed Drake London, you got to feed Bijan. There's some other people there that are gonna get touches.
I would put Ingram over Njoku and Freiermuth.
Okay.
Because Trevor Lawrence used Ingram, and Ingram stayed healthy. Now, again, injury risk with Ingram from previous. He did play most of last season, and Trevor Lawrence threw him the ball on a regular basis.
So where you think Ridley's going to eat into Kirk's touches, I actually think Ridley's going to eat into Ingram's touches, and that's why I don't have him above 10. I think that's who.
See, I think Ridley eats into Zay Jones and Christian Kirk's touches more than Ingram's touches. Because
I think
easy dump off guy.
Well, I see based on a lot of the ways they used him last year, especially when it split out wide, that's where Ridley's going to play. So Ingram's not getting those same looks that he got in those situations. But that's why I have him at 10.
Biggie mentions the Cleveland tight end. So, Biggie, I'm going to tell you, when it comes to talent, Njoku is a top talent at tight end. He just doesn't – he's never gotten the volume for fantasy. Well,
and Watson proved last year he likes Njoku.
So
Watson didn't play great last year, but I believe, as much as I hate to say it because I no longer root for the guy, I believe Watson still has top 5 potential.
I don't think he does in this offense.
Fair.
Because I don't think this is a wide open, 5 wide offense.
Is that just because of who Stefanski has had at quarterback though, or is that because he just doesn't want to run that kind of offense? That's what I don't understand yet.
Well, Stefanski's from the West Coast scheme. The West Coast scheme is not 5 wide.
No, but they love tight ends.
They do like tight ends in the West Coast scheme. Absolutely true.
And I see Watson returning more to form and he's proven he likes Njoku, and with how talented Njoku is athletically, that's why I've got him there.
So I do think Njoku could be a decent fantasy tight end. Now, let's be honest. If you're not a top 6 or 7 fantasy tight end, are you really producing that much? No.
All these guys should be giving you about 10 a week.
Right. So you're not,
and that's what you want.
You're not getting a whole lot.
And let's be honest, if
later.
Anything below Goddard, really, even Pitts is a little bit lower. Pitts is almost a value this year. All those guys are getting drafted late. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're drafting these guys in the first 7 rounds.
And I think Freiermuth has talent enough to be a good fantasy tight end. I just don't think, like, for whatever reason, they don't use tight ends in that offense.
Yeah,
that much.
Canada is not the best offensive play caller. Let's be honest.
So that's why I'm not high on Freiermuth. I think he has the talent.
But you've got him in your top 10, and I've got him at 9.
Actually, I would probably drop him out of my top 10.
For who?
For one of my value guys, I would probably put Cole Kmet in my top 10.
Oh, my God. Are you serious?
I think I would. Because Freiermuth came out with so much hype, and they have not used him at all. Fantasy, like,
I can't believe you're saying this because you. So are you coming around on Kmet finally?
Not really. They use him. Like, they used him all last season.
I don't trust that play caller and that offense and those head coaches to use them enough to get above these guys. That's the kicker. I love Kmet talent-wise. I just don't trust them to use him correctly. They would have done it last year if they could have.
He put up more fantasy points last season than Freiermuth did.
I don't think so.
He did.
Really?
Absolutely. Look it up. Go into my value picks, and you already had one of my value picks in the top 10, Evan Ingram.
Oh, he was number 7 last year? I didn't realize he was that high.
Right.
We know I love Kmet. Now I wish I had put him in there.
So, I think you can get Kmet. Justin Fields had a good rapport.
Kmet's a value pick for me. I just didn't realize he finished that high at tight end last year. I don't know how I missed that. He is my value pick.
I'm smart.
I like it. Coming around on some guys.
You had Evan Ingram, which I totally believe in. The third guy, this is like deep value. The guy I feel like in this new offense, he could actually put up some points. Now, I don't know how serious his injury is. Mike Gesicki.
No. Hunter Henry's still there. I don't trust the quarterback. No way.
I'm telling you, man. As a deep, this is more of a deep value. I don't want you to draft him high.
You drafting him as like your second tight end, like your backup, then maybe I'm cool with that. If you're drafting him as your tight end, oof, that would be rough.
I mean, it just depends on your league, right? Some leagues you have to start a tight end. Some leagues you don't. You know.
Ooh, that would be rough. I like Big E. My super late value, like way late, like may not even go drafted, is Johnson with the Saints. I love that potential. A sneaky dark horse value, though, that I think you could take as your number 1, and he could have a huge top 10 year, easy, but is going way late, and you could almost take it with one of your last picks, is Everett in San Diego.
I mean, Everett was solid with the Chargers.
Yeah, but Kellen Moore loves to use the tight end in his offense. So there's even more value now with getting him the ball.
I mean, Dalton Schultz 8, but that's because Dak can't throw to anybody. So,
well, we'll see. I think they had a good chemistry, and I think Kellen Moore likes to scheme for the tight end. So I think that could be a great value there.
All right. Let's get some defenses, and let's finish up the show.
All right. So I feel like defenses like kickers can almost be interchangeable in a lot of situations because like the same one never finishes number 1 again. So this is more about consistency in your defense, not necessarily who's going to finish with the most points, just who's going to give you the highest floor week to week is kind of how I looked at it. I've got the Niners, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Jets, the Bills, the Ravens, the Dolphins, the Pats, the Steelers, and I've got the Packers at 10. I think the Packers have a huge bounce back year. We had them as a top 10 defense last year, and they were miserable. I think they're like 24th or 25th last year, something terrible. But they have so much talent on that defense. And in years past, they had always hovered around that 10 mark. They were always pretty consistent. So I like the Packers to have a big bounce back at 10. But again, this is more about an order of the highest ceiling the highest floor rather than the highest ceiling. Not so much picking who's going to finish with the most fantasy points, but who's going to give you the best chance to give you points every week to make sure you're winning. That's what I'm thinking.
So I'm looking at this. The Steelers and the Packers are like the two teams I'm not sure of overall.
I get it. There's just so much talent there. When I'm looking at week to week, and again, highest floor,
But
not necessarily the most points.
If you have them in your top 10, I don't think you can argue too much. Again, the defenses are so, like, when you look at the defense,
volatile.
Yeah, I mean, like you want to look for the teams that give you the best floor. Absolutely true. So, I can't argue too much about the way that you ranked them. I think most of your rankings are actually pretty good. We agree on something.
Yeah, I was not expecting this to go as smoothly as it did, sir. Cheers.
Now, if that league doesn't play with defenses, so let me get out of that. There's a couple defenses I do have as the possible top 10s that I think.
Value-wise, if we're going to talk value on defense, I'll go first this time. I got the Broncos as a value.
Oh, Broncos are huge value. Huge value. They were, before the end of the season, they were a top 10 defense already.
Yep.
So,
and if the offense is better this year, which I agree it will be, and, you're bringing back Vance Joseph, who's a great defensive coordinator, I think that defense is solid. Absolutely.
I got three.
Broncos can easily be a top 10.
I got three defenses that I think are value picks. Broncos are one of them. I would say the Saints are a value.
I like that.
Big value. Based on their division and based on they really haven't lost any defensive talent. And then I would go with the Seahawks. Now, I think they had some games where they did struggle, but then I think they had some games they really showed up. So I think there's some good value there.
I think a sneaky defense that not a lot of people think about, but has been pretty solid and is a value as well that you could argue for is Cincinnati. I think that could be a sneaky one. And then if Kansas City gets Chris Jones back, they could possibly have some sneaky value as well. But when I'm talking value for defenses, I'm talking strictly your streaming options. Because to me, if these aren't the 10 defenses you're taking in a 10 team, now obviously it's 12 or 14, you're dropping down to some of these guys we talked about. But if you're playing in a standard 10, then really the value defenses we're talking about are what your streaming week should be. Your bye week for your standard defense is how I look at value with defenses.
Yeah, Biggie. Jets were ranked fourth on Caleb's list.
Yeah, I got the Jets at 4.
Because their defense was really good last season, and that's with like subpar offensive play.
Subpar is being kind.
It wasn't good.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at, Pinky. Not a lot of disagreement. I like it tonight. That was obviously we did have disagreement because we always will, but pleasantly surprised that we kind of see eye to eye on the top 10s in each category and kind of the ranking and the order as well.
The other value play that I think you can at least get decent value from every week. I mean, there's two of them. There's the Bengals and the Chiefs. Now
I said both of those.
I walked away for a sec. So.
I know.
They the biggest thing about both those teams, they do rely off turnovers, and they get turnovers because their offenses put pressure on the other team.
Well, and the Chiefs have to get Chris Jones back. If they don't get Chris Jones, you're not touching him.
They're getting Chris Jones back. That's going to happen. He's still under contract.
New England is 8, Biggie.
Yeah, New England's and New England's the one that, like, their defense could technically probably be top 5.
Sure.
The way that they play. But the downfall to New England is they do play in what may be the best, arguably the best offensive division in the AFC is the AFC East, because they've got the Bills, they play the Dolphins, and now they play the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. Those are 3 good offensive teams. They play those guys 6 out of the 17 games.
Yeah. And those 6 weeks could easily be a 0 to 5 point game. You know what I mean? So that's rough to put them any higher this year. But yeah, I mean, I've got them in the top 10.
Now, when they play teams out of division, do you feel pretty good about them week to week? Absolutely. That's where, if you take New England, you probably want to grab another defense so you can kind of stream depending on matchups.
Possibly. That is a possibility. Absolutely. Any final thoughts, good sir?
Man, it's almost football season. As we've talked some fantasy, again, I can't stress it enough. I think we stressed it last year. You need to know your league scoring settings, because that's going to tell you where your value is. I'm in one of my leagues is a quarterback. It's super flex. You can only have 2 quarterbacks. There's a quarterback premium. You got to get at least one. If you don't get at least one, you're screwed. You're going to have a rough year. You got to get at least one good one. You can take a risk on the second one, but you got to get at least one good one. Biggie, yeah, kickers, I mean, sure, you can get a 20-point game from a kicker. But when you average it out at the end of the season, the number 1 kicker versus the number 10 kicker, there's not a huge difference.
It's like a 20-point overall difference in total season scoring.
Yeah,
and top of that, if anybody in your league is taking kicker before the very last pick, foolish. I'm going to say that now, foolish. And secondly, that means you're just taking in order, whichever point in the draft you are, you're just taking the next dude in line. You know what I mean? Like, so whatever.
Like, if you want to be the guy that jumps out and takes Justin Tucker or Harrison Butker because he kicks for the Chiefs, fine. But when at the end of the season, you could have gotten a better running back or a wide receiver for depth and a kicker that scored 20 less points than those guys. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Again, some leagues do like choose different point totals for the kickers. Like, you'll get different points for 30 yards, 40 yards, 50 yards. In those leagues, yeah, a kicker could be more valuable.
Biggie, you're playing in some wild leagues, man. I would be ecstatic if I was playing in your leagues the way some of your guys are drafting, because that's just leaving value left and right for you, my guy.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a kicker go before like Justin Tucker and Butker back New England when they were really firing Gostkowski, 12th round.
Dude, if I see that, I just get super happy because I know then value just dropped to me somehow. I just got to make sure I take advantage of it. I will say, along with Pinky saying knowing your scoring is a huge deal. Obviously, you know, the roster spots, your starting positions, that all goes with scoring. The other thing I would say you need to do is if you're playing in a league more than just a year with the same people, you really better start getting a feel for how those people think, how they like to draft. And then you need to start mocking. I fully believe in mock drafting. I think anybody that doesn't is putting themselves at a disadvantage, and this is why. Mocking, while it's not going to be accurate to the team you actually get, what it does do is it helps you see, on average, kind of the value and where guys are going given your league settings, and it helps you come up with game plans. So if the guy you want goes right before you, you already have a backup A, B, C, D, and F plan. You're not sitting there stung and confused and not sure what to do and then making a bad decision because of it. So I think knowing your league mates and then mocking with that in mind gives you a really good leg up on being able to make sure you're acquiring the most bang for your buck, the best potential, the best value, as we keep talking about. In any situation, regardless of the scoring or the settings or anything. Knowing your league mates, kind of how they like to draft, and giving yourself multiple options on what you feel can give you the best team is a huge deal.
If you draft on Sleeper, one of the great things you can do is you can look at previous year's drafts. And you really could look at how your league mates have drafted.
Absolutely.
Most people are creatures of habit. Most. Some folks may change up their strategy, but a lot of people are creatures of habit. And that can really help you figure out, is it most likely this guy's going to take a running back in the top 3 rounds? Or is he going to kind of diversify, right?
So that's the thoughts. That's our rankings. Honestly, this is stuff we love to talk about. So if you have any questions, if you just want somebody to bounce ideas off of, like you're picking between 2 guys and you're having trouble making a decision one way or the other, shoot us a message. We're more than happy to help sway you one way or the other. We'll be talking about this throughout the year. We love dipping into the fantasy world. We think it ties in really well, actually, with being able to talk real football as well. Just kind of giving how teams are doing and how that relates and things of that nature. So this won't be the last time you hear about this. Obviously, we're going to do not a mock draft, an actual one of our league drafts live coming up here right before the season starts. And then we'll talk football right after that. So, stay with us. As always.
Yeah, buddy.
Spend that quality time with your loved ones. Don't take it for granted. Anybody in that inner circle that you consider family, cherish those moments. Pinky, you're my dude. Appreciate you as always. We love all the support. Cheers. We're out.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go.